We've looked at the Dark Knight Returns Batman, we've looked at Superman, we've looked at 3 different versions of Carrie Kelly, and today we're going to look at 3 Jokers. Not to be confused with, the 3 Jokers. We're also going to look at a horse. Place your bets. It's time for another Versus. Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation, where I review action figures and then articulate 5 points to help you decide if you want to add that figure to your collection. The 5 points I discuss are packaging, presentation, posability, playability, and price. I'm Jason, and if you enjoy my content, please like, share, subscribe, do all the YouTube rigmarole. In this corner, we have Dark Knight Returns Joker from DC Direct, and in this corner, we have Dark Knight Returns Joker by Mattel, and in this corner, we have the all-new DC Multiverse Dark Knight Returns Joker by McFarlane Toys. Starting off the packaging, and if you saw my Carrie Kelly video, you might have some idea where this is going to go. The McFarlane box, of course, is very simple and very classy. Well, you can see it's from the Build-A-Horse wave. Name and logo on the side, barcode for those who want it, and on the back we get a product shot of the horse, and instructions how to build it. The Mattel one is also a window box and a bit more colorful. We've got a picture from the comic to see what he's supposed to look like, and the shortest of bios. Similar to the McFarlane multiverse, and the back is really more about the Build-A-Figure. In this case, it was King Shark. But then we get to the DC Direct one. It seems kind of clunky and old-fashioned, but it also feels like a better celebration of the comic it was based on. We get a little blurb on the side to tell us what the comic's about, nice clear product shot of what they're supposed to look like, some more product shots, and also bios of each character. Bottom line, these boxes are great for fans who already know a bit about the comic. This one, however, feels like a greater celebration for people who love it. Not only that, but it has enough info to make new fans want to check out the source material. For packaging, this round goes to DC Direct. Moving on to presentation, and this part might not go the way you expect. First things first, the Mattel one is the shortest of the 3 at 6.5 inches. McFarlane is in the middle, standing at 6 3/4. The DC Direct one is the tallest, standing at 7 on the dot. From the top, and each company approached the head very differently. The DC Direct one has a very cocky, pursed lip expression. If you look closely, you can see it was cast in a flesh tone with the white blotched over it. This helps to create some nice modeling and depth. Additionally, they gave his hair some highlights and shadows. The Mattel one has a more static expression. This one was cast in a gray plastic with some white dry brushing, similar to DC Direct, and it really does bring out the wrinkles. I also think that his eyes are particularly piercing and unnerving. The hair is nicely sculpted and does have a bit of dry brushing as well. Lastly, McFarlane's opted for a more cackling face. There's a bit of shadowing around the eyes, but that's it, and the hair is a bit more muted. That said, to my eye, this really does not look like the Dark Knight Returns Joker. In the comics, he was a lot more wrinkled and haggard. Here, his face is just too soft and smushed together. Moving on down, and the bodies are very different as well. Of the 3, DC Direct is absolutely the most comics accurate, but it's also pretty much a statue. That said, I absolutely love the iridescent paints used for the suit and tie, and they did go in to paint the sleeves poking out from the cuff. I can't say the same for Mattel, unfortunately, but one thing that they did do was go in and airbrush a bit of shading on the jacket. This is a detail that neither of the other companies did. And then there's McFarlane. The first thing you'll notice is that his waist is not nearly as cinched as the other two, and the second thing you'll notice is the texture. The Joker did wear a jacket similar to this in the comic, but he wore it with black pants. This Joker's pants are more cream colored and absolutely do not fit with the look that they were going for. My theory is that they sculpted it this way so that they could reissue it as that version of the character, but the result is that it just plain looks wrong. Speaking of the pants, the DC Direct one has absolutely no articulation in them. As such, they do look better, but they're completely non-functional. And speaking of function, he's wearing some very sensible wedges. The DC Direct one has a very nice two-tone quality. That said, the Mattel one seems a bit pointier, especially compared to the McFarlane one, which has been kind of rounded off. Also, the purple on McFarlane is just a bit too purple. Simply put, presentation is what a figure looks like. DC Direct has a lot of personality and does look the closest to the comic, but it barely qualifies as an action figure. The McFarlane one, on the other hand, is absolutely hideous for all the wrong reasons. So, as a balance of both form and function, for presentation, this round goes to Mattel. Moving on to posability, and DC Direct has a swivel neck. The Mattel one has a ball joint, but it can't hold any up or down pose. It can, however, turn side to side. The McFarlane head, however, is on a dumbbell joint. It can look up this far down. Great tilt for snapping his own neck. DC Direct has swivel shoulders.
La 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 la.
Mattel and McFarlane, however, have swivel hinge. Unlike most DC Multiverse figures, he has neither a rotator cuff nor a bicep swivel, but he does have double-jointed elbows. The Mattel figure has single-jointed swivel elbows, and the DC Direct one cuts a pretty nice silhouette. Moving all the way down, and both the DC Direct and Mattel versions have a swivel wrist. The DC Multiverse, however, has the McFarlane-style wrist ball. It can swivel and hinge. Moving to the middle, and DC Direct has no torso articulation. Mattel actually has an ab crunch. He can hunch over like so. That said, both DC Direct and Mattel have a waist swivel, and McFarlane has a dumbbell waist. This allows for a bit of forward and back, tilt, and twist. Below the waist, and the DC Direct one has good intentions. The Mattel one has ball-jointed hips, and the DC Multiverse one has McFarlane-style hips. They kick out this far and split this far. The Mattel one has a thigh cut, but the McFarlane one does get a bit of twist. Moving on down, the Mattel one has a single-jointed swivel knee, and so does McFarlane. And then moving all the way down, and the Mattel ankles can hinge, but the McFarlane ones can swivel, hinge, and pivot. He also has toe-ticulation. Obviously, this round goes to McFarlane. Moving on to playability, and the DC Direct one comes with a couple of guns, pretty much one for each hand. I love the dainty way he raises his pinky, but I really love how you can use them for your DC Multiverse figures. Additionally, the DC Direct one comes with Bobby. He can swivel at the neck, the shoulders, and the legs. He even has a peg hole in his foot. Honestly, they went really all out on this. Lastly, they gave him a sidewalk display base, and just like with Carrie Kelly, you have to put the peg in yourself. Something about that just makes me not want to trust it. Even so, let's give it a shot. I mean, he's on there, but can I get him off of there without taking the peg with him? Alright, success. Moving on to the Mattel one, and he actually comes with an alternate head. You might notice that it's packed at an odd angle, but that's actually for a reason. It's to keep him from horrifying children over the hole in his eye. That hole is to accommodate this batarang. Not only is this possibly the most carpet goblin-y accessory I've ever seen, but I am astonished that they were able to sell this on the children's toy aisle. I actually superglued mine just to be safe. While we're here, it's a nice opportunity to compare the two laughing heads, and honestly, there is still no contest. Also, I know how much you love head swaps, and wow, night and day difference. Here it is with the other head, and I love it. It would take a bit of repainting, but I think it would be totally worth it. And speaking of things you can no longer get away with at the toy aisle, he also comes with a gun. Not as nice as DC Direct, but it gets the job done. He also comes with this very interesting knife. He holds that like so. Lastly, he comes with the torso of the King Shark. Personally, I prefer my King Shark with a dad bod. As usual, the McFarlane one comes with a trading card and a figure stand. Pause here if you want to read it. He also comes with this monologue hand. It pops on like so. He also comes with a knife, which is admittedly a bit more basic looking. The knife is soft, but the hand is really rigid, and it did take a bit of work. This version doesn't have a gun, but he does have a weapon holding hand, so you can use your own. He also comes with the head of the horse, perfect for reenacting The Godfather. They did a good job of sculpting and painting the bridle. The bit's actually articulated, and the reins are nice and soft. So soft, in fact, that it kind of pops off a lot. I do wish that the bridle was completely removable, but it is what it is. And what it is time to build a horse. At its highest point, the horse is 9 inches tall. Nose to butt, and it's 9.5 inches, but nose to tail, and it's 13.5. There's articulation in the head. It can also look up and down. Front legs move forward and back, as do the knees. And then the hooves can swivel, hinge, and pivot. The hind legs can move forward and back, hinge at the knee, and the same hoof articulation as the front. Lastly, the tail can swivel and hinge. But playability is more than horses and accessories. It's also about how well your figures play with others. First things first, for some Carrie Kelly comparisons, here we have DC Direct, here we have Mattel, and here we have McFarlane. Here we have the McFarlane Dark Knight Returns Superman, and of course, Batman. For just a few other Batman comparisons, here we have Detective Comics 1000, here we have the Battle Damaged, and here we have the DC Designer Series Greg Capullo version. For some other Joker comparisons, here we have Mortal Kombat 11, the 3 Jokers Clown version, DC Universe Classics, and Legends of the Dark Knight by Kenner. For all 4 characters using the McFarlane figure, here you go. Here we have the Mattel version. If you can accept the Joker being a bit shorter than Batman, I think this works just fine. But of course, here we have DC Direct. He scales better, but aesthetically doesn't really fit in. For a fellow white suit wearing villain comparison, here they are with Arcade. For a relative scale comparison, here they are with Pizza Spidey and the Spectacular Spider-Man. And of course, here they are with Stealth Iron Man. For a horse comparison, here it is with Daredevil from Sleepy Hollow. This figure was made by McFarlane Toys back in 1999. For another another horse comparison, here he is with Wonder Woman 1984, and the one designed by Todd McFarlane himself. Unfortunately, the other versions are a bit too skirty and a bit too capey. Speaking of capes, here's Batman from the Three Jokers. Luckily, his cape's nice and flexible. Of course, Dark Knight's death metal's no problem, and honestly, this looks really cool. But of course, the one you all want to see is Batman from The Dark Knight Returns, and I honestly have some mixed feelings. Frank Miller's over-the-top artwork is extremely exaggerated and stylized. This, however, is a very realistic horse. This is so they could reuse the mold for The Witcher and Gunslinger Spawn and who knows what else. I'm not saying it doesn't look good, I'm just saying it kinda clashes. That said, I am frankly astonished that I was able to pull this off. For a smaller scale comparison, here it is with Marvel Legends' Kraven the Hunter. If you want to complete the horse, the McFarlane figure is absolutely essential. That said, if all you want is the horse, McFarlane's made it available in other ways. With that in mind, on his own, the McFarlane Joker doesn't really have a whole lot to offer. The DC Direct one has a couple of cool guns. He also has Bobby, which to my knowledge no other figure has ever come with. That said, the Mattel one has two different weapons, an alternate head, and more figures you can display him with. For playability, this round goes to Mattel. This leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the price. The DC Multiverse version is available at retail right now for $24.99. Given that they're a bit older, the DC Direct and Mattel ones will set you back between $35 to $45 each. That said, between the two, the Mattel one is definitely a better value, but if all you want is a decently priced Dark Knight Returns Joker, the choice is clear. For price, this round goes to McFarlane, tying him with Mattel 2 to 1. That said, if I had a preference, it would definitely be Mattel. For some other Dark Knight Returns reviews, click here. I personally feel pretty done with the Dark Knight Returns, but there is still the Armored Batman. Sound off in the comments and tell me if that's something you'd like to see. Either way, I'll be back again real soon, but until then, play nice and have fun.